Hello everybody. During today's meeting we will deal with implementing vision. I'm Łukasz Wojtkowski from Nicolaus Copernicus University, and I am a coordinator of Copernicus Startup Labs, which is the first program raised at our university to incubate and accelerate startups connected with the university. Today we will deal with how to implement vision and brand vision into the powerful business vision. And starting with the values established by Andy Mu, we'll analyze how to bring vision into action, how to bring the most distant and ephemeric trait of branding into the brand loyalty that appeals to both customers and public. As I mentioned before, working on 6 features of vision delivered before by Andy Mu, who is the head of startups at Essex Startups, I will dwell on vision implementation not as a step-by-step tutorial, but rather as a roadmap that every brand, company or a startup can follow to build emotions and feelings aligned to the brand trust. As a roadmap, you may pick the direction that your brand wants to follow, your innovation startup or business will go through. However, we will start with the organization's why to capture how the vision translates into the loyalty and value of a particular brand. That is why we start with taking the action. As I mentioned before, we started with the vision in branding in context of brand building. That is why we have to start what branding is. And starting with the branding and the definition, we can analyze branding as an organized management process aimed at creating and managing brand equity, value, loyalty, and perceived quality that we will develop later on during the presentation. But thinking of a branding as a process and a management process per se, we have to think of 3 main features that this process contains. First of all, branding has to be focused on vision. So how to build some specific issue that can be translated and developed within the future, within next marketing campaigns, and delivered to the market, staying sharp with what we want to deliver, staying sharp with the vision. That is why branding as a process has to be consistent over time. It can pivot indeed. However, we have to think of a major aim, major goal that we established in the beginning to deliver some specific milestones during the process of developing and delivering vision. And the final element of a branding as a process is that every brand process has to be linked to communication. So branding as a management issue is always communicative process. What it means? It means that brand, while established, has to be communicated to the public, constantly thinking of what the brand should be perceived by the public, should be perceived by the audience, and should be perceived by the users. So knowing what branding is, we have to think first what brand is. So branding as a process deals with a brand. And if we take a look at Oxford Language and Oxford Dictionary, we can see that it is defined as a type of a product manufactured by the particular company under a particular name. But this is a very functional definition of what branding is and what brand is actually, that is not aligned with the process itself, and it is not aligned with emotions that brands should deliver and the feelings that brands should deliver. It is moreover not aligned with the vision in branding. That is why I'd rather think of a brand as a sum of association that the brand audience users have about the products, services, organizations, places. This is the sum of association in minds of the customers or users. This is the sum of images, sound, smell, words that every brand produces. So branding, rather than a very technical element or process, is a process that applies to the touch and feeling that every brand should build, connecting the brand, the core values of the brand, with the public that the brand appeals to. But starting with the branding and the brand and the vision in branding, we have to go through a very detailed process that is connected to building brand equity. So thinking of a brand equity, we can think of a set of assets or liabilities linked to the brand's name or a symbol that adds to the value provided by a product or a service to a company and the company's customer. So first, brand equity is a set of assets. Thus, the management of brand equity involves investment to create and enhance these assets. Second, each brand equity assets create specific value in a variety of different ways. In order to manage brand equity effectively and to make informed research-based decisions about brand building activities, it is important for brand managers and owners to be sensitive to the ways in which strong brands create the value, to compare with these brands and try to implement the way they produce value. Third, brand equity creates the value for the customers first, but as well for the company. So thinking of a brand equity, we have to think of the brand equity outside, so how the users, customers take this equity, build this equity, but also in the internal communication of brand, how this equity is being built by the team and how the team is developing. It is very important, especially in terms of a startup brands. So thinking about brand equity, we can think of 4 elements. First, awareness and identity. So how we perceived as a brand our core values, how we perceived as a brand, for instance, the brand of the startup we create, but also how the awareness of this startup brand is being built in the environment within the stakeholders outside our brand. Second element are values, how we create the values that are very core basis that we build our communication upon. Third is perceived quality. We never know actually as a customers what is the actual quality of a product, of the service that company takes. We don't know much about technology, however we use it. We do not know much about telephones. We do not know what's inside. We just trust that the brand delivers what it promises. This is why we think about perceived quality rather than actual quality. And the final element, one of the crucial, we will discuss it later, is loyalty. So how brands build a specific loyalty, which is a process of customers to align with the brand, to trust the brand, to be very trustful in terms of building the satisfaction to the brand. So thinking about these 4 elements of brand equity, we have to ask the question of why. Why specific brands, in terms of building the vision, succeed while others not? Why some brands are managed in a way to build the trust and loyalty and values, to deliver the vision, and others cannot succeed? This is why I will work on a golden circle delivered by Simon Sinek in the book Start With Why, when he describes why, how, and what of every organization. And thinking about, for instance, startups and new technology businesses, it is very crucial to define this why to build sustainable business, to build sustainable startup solution. But first we have to start with why. So what? Every organization on this planet know what they do. Every startup should know what they want to do. These are the products or services that these brands deliver. They usually know how they do it. So thinking of a startup, some startup know how they deliver this product, how they produce this product, how they license this product, whether it's a HaaS model of product licensing or SaaS model of product licensing. But these are the things that are special for them, apart in trying to be differentiated from the competition. But the final issue and the most important and crucial element is why. Very few organizations, according to Simon Sinek, know why they do what they do. Why is not about making money, it's just a side effect, to be honest. Why is a purpose, is a cause to believe in the startup, is to cause to believe in the brand, not just to buy it, but to believe in the solutions, services, products that this startup can or will deliver. This is the actual reason for the company, for the startup, to exist on the market. And translating this golden circle from of Simon Sinek's to branding, we can quote David Acker, who is actually one of the founding fathers of contemporary branding, who thinks that brand vision refers to the ideas behind a brand that help guide to the future. According to Acker, when the brand vision clicks, it reflects and supports the business strategy, differentiates from the competitions, resonates with the customers, energizes and inspires employees, employers and partners, and participates a gush of ideas for marketing programs. But it's a crucial element. If the brand vision is missing, if it's absent or superficial, the brand will drift aimlessly, and there is no marketing program or marketing strategy that could build upon visionless brand. But building vision in terms of a branding is not an easy process, and building vision in terms of why in branding is even more difficult. That is why I would like to think us about delivering why in terms of bringing vision into the action, about 6 different elements that are the very core basis to deliver this vision into the practice. So first of all, what we have to start with is delivering the vision. Delivering the vision means to establish 6 to 12 core elements that the most brands can be defined with as a single words, phrases that describes the values of a brand, the core elements. The vision elements are prioritized into the 2 or 5 that are most compelling and differentiating. We can call them core vision elements. These are core because within the time they have to go to the extensions. So the second element is the incorporation of the extensions. They add some sort of a texture to the brand vision, allowing most strategists to make better judgments, better solutions, delivering the brand into the action. This extended visions element, for instance, considering them as a personality of the brand, affords a home for important aspects of the brands, such as brand personality, and they are overbuilding the core elements of the vision with additional elements that could be addressed for the new markets, that could be addressed for the new customers of the new users of the branding. The third element is selecting very unique brand vision dimensions. Brand vision dimensions that are relevant to the context in which brand operates, but also picking up some specific elements of defined vision extensions to the market. And it depends actually which one we will pick on what market we operate on. For instance, B2B brands will pick different elements of unique brand vision dimensions than B2C or B2I. So we have to very carefully thinking of, for instance, the startup, what elements of this vision pick depending on which side of a client we want to appeal to. For instance, to possible investors, some elements of the visions will not be interesting, as they are interesting for the customers that we want to build, the customer base that we want to build. Next element is building aspirational brand vision. What it means? It has to go beyond current strategy. So thinking of a brand strategy as, for instance, 1 year element, 1 year product that we want to establish, we have to think of a brand vision surpassing that time, surpassing that moment that we want to finish the strategy. Thinking of a brand vision in terms of aspirational, it is the association the brand needs to go forward given its current and future business strategy. Too often this strategy are very narrow-minded. Too often they are not allowing for pivoting from the strategy and thinking further. That is why a brand has to plans to extend new categories of products, new categories of services, and will need probably to go to its current image, to go to its current values. That is why every brand has to operate on a central theme that the brand builds, as some sort of a brand essence or a claim. One sentence element that could be easily delivered to the public, but also easily perceived by the public and associated with this specific organization, this specific startup solution it builds. And it also boils down to the building a brand voice. So thinking of a target audiences we have to appeal to, build the tone of voice of a brand, and within this specific tone of voice, delivering messages to specific niches on the market, knowing what we want from them, what we want our audiences to do for our brand. That is why we will also work on tone of voice later during the presentation. But then we have to go knowing how to bring this why into brand visions composed of these 6 elements that you can see on the slide. We have to think of it in the terms of building brand loyalty, which is one of the most difficult processes in branding. Because building brand loyalty assumes not only customers that will buy our products or services, but customers that will build some specific emotions using this product or services. In terms of loyalty in branding, we can think of it as 3 pieces composed together process, so to speak. So first of all, building loyalty in branding means to build reason to buy. So we have to deliver, for instance, thinking of a startup and implementing startup on the market, we have to give our users the reason to buy, because while they buy it, we make money on the services, on the products. Used to, reasons to buy were very based on a unique selling proposition, USP. In the 80s, 70s, or even the 60s and 50s actually, brands were differentiating themselves based on some specific uniqueness of functionalities. But in the 90s, unique selling proposition was translated into ESP, emotional selling propositions. Brands were starting to build their selling pitches based on emotions that users and the clients were aligning to the brands. This was actually reason to buy. The second element crucial to the brand loyalty is that brand loyalty, when built, determines strategic success. So, for instance, if we will be able as a startup to build some core-based user audience, and if we will make our vision to the loyalty, and if the users will be loyal with us, use our technology instead of others, we will succeed in terms of building strategy. But also, we will build a very successful brand value proposition. So the value for the customers of our brand. But the most important and the most crucial element in terms of bringing brand loyalty is two-step process of building satisfaction and trust. So satisfaction is a conditional behavior of the customer. So for instance, we buy some product, we download the app and we start to use it, and this app fulfills the satisfaction that we wanted to have using this app. But within time, for instance, we decide to go further and we decide to pay for some subscription plan, we build the trust. So confidence that every time we will use a specific startup solution, it will meet our expectations. So every time I build satisfaction and then translate it, go a step further to the trust, I build brand loyalty. And take a look at it. Both elements are emotions. They are not very functional elements like within USP or reasons to buy. These are the emotions that we want to build in producing brand loyalty. And I will give you 2 examples of how these emotions could be translated into advertisements, how these emotions could be translated into satisfaction and trust of 2 specific brands.
your heart be light. From now on, our troubles will be out of sight. Hang a shining star upon the highest bough, and have yourself a merry little Christmas now.
You can't always sort of baby your stuff. I mean, of course you're gonna like shove your shoulder back in there and like get your elbow, and you're just gonna do everything you can to get up there.
I'm not really great at sewing, so when I sew, I just sew the heck out of it. I tied them up permanently and sewed them permanently, so the only way to get them on is to not be too fat.
The longer I keep a piece of gear, the more stories it accumulates and the more memories.
Once I buy a jacket, I hope and expect that it works for him and for her and for that guy too.
Bicycled from the Andes down to the upper Amazon. It's been to Ireland, across North America a bunch of times, South America, Bolivia. I could have gotten rid of this a long time ago, but it tells a story every time I put it on.
Humans are so short-sighted. We think, what can we do in these years that I'm here? And then I photograph a tree that lives 3,000 years, and I'm like, wait a minute.
What do a bunch of blacksmiths know about sewing anyway?
What we have seen were not just another mundane product ad with the reason to buy based on functionalities and unique selling propositions. These were the campaigns based not even on emotional selling propositions. Both ads were addressing a lifestyle and beliefs rather than knowledge. So, Misunderstood was a feeling-based campaign from 2013. The ad was fueled by feeling-based tensions between what we have seen during the film, so quite isolated teenager who was doing something with a telephone, and the final outcome. We knew all the way through that the boy was doing something substantially wrong when it comes to the Christmas time and the time spending with the family. However, eventually, he earns his trust due to the emotions and beliefs that the movie he made cost. So we see that we even know that we knew that something wasn't right with the situation depicted on the ad, we trusted to some extent that it can be finished with some good emotional attachment. The second ad, Worn Wear from Patagonia, which is a brand of apparel outdoor company, building sustainable products, outdoor products, and Worn Wear was a Patagonia's hub for keeping gear in place, so to speak. What we've seen, it wasn't the ad for us to buy, giving a reason to buy another product. It was rather extending the lifespan of the product because, quoting Patagonia, the best thing we can do for the planet is to cut down the consumption and get more use of stuff we already own. So, according to Patagonia, we made rather gut decisions in terms of the feeling what is okay and feeling what is right. So, when we make these gut decisions and trust the brands because we think of them that they speak truly, we build this satisfaction and we build this trust. This trust is not a brain-based, knowledge-based process. It's rather trusting our instincts, feeling that something is right with a brand. Because finally, it builds on the believing the brand is right. So, for instance, buying used extends a lifetime of the company, extends the lifetime of the products we use, but also it drastically reduces both our reliance on resources as generation of the waste. So we trust Patagonia not as a greenwashing company, but as actually the company who established this trend in clothing and outdoor apparel of building sustainable company based on not buying new products, but delivering old products and trying to reuse them in a different configurations. What both ads deliver is not the reason to buy rather, but in terms of loyalty is a reason to believe. So the core set of values that enables a particular brand to deliver why as promised in vision. So we trust these brands because we know what they do, we know how they do, because they show it on websites, they're showing on a commercials. But we first of all trust. We've got a reason to believe because we trust what they do with the companies. We trust the vision they try to establish in terms of delivering this vision for the market. But working on the vision and trying to deliver it to the market requires also working on values. So not just the perceived quality, not just the equity I mentioned before, and not just building the brand loyalty, but also establishing brand values. And when we think of a brand and the brand values, we can think of it as some unique set of brand association that particular strategies try to create or maintain. And this is actually the associations that brand represent and promises. And we could think of these brand values as two elements: core values and extended values that are communicated in current advertisements, campaign products, etc., to build a perceived quality of the customers and to build perceived quality of the users. And I will give it on a case, I will give you the case study of how these core values were translated into the extensions, communicated to building perceived quality on some specific brand that used to started as a clothing company, as a startup, that you probably all know because everybody knows, I guess, Nike. So core values of Nike were what the organization has presented for many years, based on brand essence. The basis on which the organization is based, which is at the same time the element at least exposed to turmoil around the organization. Built from the image that is communicated and received in the very beginning of the company. And what you see on this slide is a slide of a Nike Cortez. That was the first track and field shoe delivered by Nike in 1972, because as you may know, Nike was a company that was used to bringing up shoes from all over the world to United States to deliver its own brand, and this brand was associated mostly in the beginning with the track and field. So it was a running company and running apparel mostly. And the Nike Cortez was first designed by Nike co-founder Bill Bowerman, and aiming to produce comfortable and durable running shoes for distance running and trail road running. And it was released in 1972, as I mentioned, during the Summer Olympics, and quickly gained the interest of general public. So if you think of it as a core value, core communication of Nike, you can see that basically this core identity was based on the trust for the product. The product is durable, you can run long distances, so basically sport and fitness builds the product trust. Then we've got a user profile. Who uses this product? Athlete. Plus all the interested in fitness and health. So you see that this niche market, or beachhead market as we can call it, was a very narrow one. But the shoes and the company delivers the promise of a performance. So basically these are the shoes based on technological superiority from a different shoes. So as a first major US-based company building shoes for track and field, Nike was built on the trust of the product, user profile based on athletes, and the performance. Within the time, since 80s and 90s, every company, and Nike is not different from the other one, try to extend this value. Why? Because we see that the particular niche of a market or a beachhead of the market is filled with our products or services. That is why we want to try to establish a different niches. That is why Nike signs a deal, for instance, with Michael Jordan and try to build a new communication. So basically this extended value are based on a new communication, current communication, in which elements, particular elements are sustained by the company, and companies, brands wants to emphasize them for different elements, different niches of the market. These extended values allows the company to reach new recipients, can transform within the time in a core identity, and they are usually communicated in very current promotional programs of the organizations. Why it can be translated in the future and transform into the core identity? Because as you see, we've got this line and a new sub-brand of Nike, which is Air Max, Air Jordan. And you see that basically right now they are also in a very core of a brand value. So if you think of this extended identity and extended values, we can think first of all how the brand personality of Nike has changed. It is more exciting, provocative, spirited, cool and innovative brand that also pursues the excellence in health and fitness, but also in a lifestyle. It is based on the relationships. So basically what we see is a relationship with the sportsmen, but also on the streets you see people walking in these shoes. You build the relationship with the lifestyle of other people using the Nike. You also see how the logo swoosh and the slogan claim just do it work within this like 20-30 years. But also it is built on different organizational associations connected to and supportive of athletes and their sports, but also the innovations of the apparel and the brand. We've seen a lot of endorsements, including Michael Jordan, used to Andre Agassi, Cristiano Ronaldo, LeBron James. And still it works on a heritage. So this is the brand developed in Oregon, which is considered as a track and field capital state of United States, But the value proposition differentiates from the previous one because it establishes also the functional benefits. High technology shoe that will improve performance and provide comfort. It gives emotional benefits, not only based on athletic performance, but also feeling engaged, active and healthy, and self-expressing symbolic elements and belief. So wearing these shoes, wearing these clothes, you have lifestyle-based self-expression that is generated by using these clothes that are also a part of your personality, that they are associated with the athletes who use this, but also different regular people, so to speak. So as you see these two elements, core values and extended values based on this short Nike case study, can be translated into building these core and extended values in every company and in every startup. But why implementing vision is important, not just for every company, but narrowing right now for the startups? Because, to be honest, and you probably know that most of the startups cannot deliver what they promise. Due to different elements, due to different reasons, not always connected with how they operate, but also external elements like founding, they are not able to cross the chasm. And the chasm I refer to is a Moore's chasm. To be honest, around 10% of the customers and the 10% of the brands I worked with were able to cross the chasm. Because crossing this chasm, when you see the why, is the most difficult element in terms of implementing technology. Because when we implement technology-based solution, for instance, a startup, whether it's service or product, we think of it that everybody will be interested in that. It is not true. Basically, what we appeal the first are inventors. And inventors, like 2.5% of the market, are usually interested in checking out what is going on the market. So they will be eager to try what you've built as a startup. Then you have to apply and appeal, to early adopters, which are more or less 13.5% of the market. But then the problem starts. And the problem starts, the problem that starts, it's connected basically with addressing early majority. So the majority of the market that can use your solution. Why the problem with addressing the market is so substantial in terms of the startups? Where actually there are a few reasons that I will work on in the two next slides. But first of all, startups are not able to convince users, convince the public that they have vision. Because what they work on is a product, which they should start with, but then they often forget how to build the team, how to build the business strategy to deliver the vision for the public. And if the public do not trust, again, do not build emotions, again, do not build the brand loyalty, the public is not able to trust, to feel satisfaction using the technology you have to offer. Also, the investors will not be so keen to invest, not feeling that you know what you're talking about, but not knowing how, but first of all, not knowing your why you want to deliver with this startup. This is the crucial element, because when we think of it as a Moore chasm, it is the very transition between early adopters, early majority, and the late majority. It is hard to cross, but if the company does not know why it wants to cross it, it is not, the company is not able, the startup is not able to cross it at all. And how it's so difficult? Well, it is commonly known, more or less, that startups use vision and mission claims, statements to inspire people. And although we do not have a consensus and a common ground what vision and mission should be built and how it should look, we tend to believe that most of the startups do not know what actually the vision for the startup is. And vision and mission are fundamentally formed and should be developed by the founders of the startups, sometimes between very early stages of the startup is being built and the pre-seed stages of the startup, not to mention seeding stages of the startup, because this is the moment that the vision should be already established firmly. So everything what we will talk about in the next 2 slides is about not just what and how, but actually why. And we think of 4 main reasons how the investors take the decision about financing startups. I would like to go within 4 elements. First is the team, second is business development, third is the technology, and fourth are metrics. All these elements are crucial, but when you and where you build the vision and when the investment VCs, groups of angels decide, is the team actually. Not the technology itself, because every technology, if it does not have defensible IP, intellectual property rights, can be copied. So first and the most crucial elements when you see the vision in the startups is the team, founders. How they are experienced, what different backgrounds they have, they come from. How the seeds will be built. For instance, you see the VC that can seed the startup, you have to think of it, how the seed will be put in the startup to develop the team, to be complementary in terms of different fields in which the startup wants to operate on. Second is the business development, to show the investors that our vision is scalable, that could be monetized, but also we should show the investors the potential of a fast growth. Third is a technology, what I mentioned before, IP, solid science base, which is always good for investors to see, and also algorithm based. But as I mentioned before, first 2 elements, team and the business development strategy, could be more important in terms of translating this vision, because when it comes to the product and the technology, we have to think that we often have to pivot and transfer something different in terms of delivering this product, whether it's MVP or not, to the market. And finally, with every VP group of angels we go through are the metrics. So we have to very carefully analyze to see how the vision could be translated from the beachhead strategy to serviceable obtainable market, to serviceable addressable market, and finally to our total market that we want to address. How we perceive and how we analyze metrically our competition, how we calculate lifetime consumer value, and how we calculate cost of consumer acquisition. And in those 4 elements that could be very thorough and rough, we have to be very specific in terms of the vision, because it's very easy not to delivering the vision and not crossing the chasm. That is why the process of building startups, and I use here in specific the methodology of MIT, it's very detailed, and it should be very detailed. We should not be afraid of pivoting and iterating all the things, but within these 24 steps, you have to be very careful to go through to build vision based on 3 crucial elements when it comes to the startups. First of all, people, products, and third, investors. People. When we build the team, there is an option that we will not cover every field that is necessary for a startup to operate. So the question is who to hire. Whether we will hire the people based on education skills, or we will hire the people that share the vision of our startup, share why of our startup, the place that we want to go to. That is why we have to think very carefully about team building and internal communication processes that are crucial to hiring people and establishing internal vision sustained within the startup. Second are the products. So I know that from the practice, all of the products or services pivot. Not often the product that we come up with an idea in initial stages, pre-seed stages of the startup is the same product that startup ends with. But we should think of the value-driven product and the vision-driven product. So even if we pivot from the internal elements, internal structure of the product, we have to think how this pivoting transfers to the vision and how the vision should change. And finally are the investors. And whether we talk about investors on a pre-seed and seed stages of startup financing, we should think of it as a very basic stage of building the vision and trying to convince investors for the vision. Because after seeding, there is limited possibility for us to build this vision upon. That is why the pitch presentation and the investment presentation should be very, very based off why we are doing it, and should be very based very much on the vision we have to deliver. And right now we go to the take action part, and actually this will be the part that we will develop in a few minutes during the workshop, because I would like to think of you as a startups. What I mean is I would like to deliver this vision from this more or less case-based and theory practice-based presentation to a plan that we will develop during the next minutes regarding the workshop stages. That is why for the people that will stay with us during the workshop, I would like to think of you, and I would like to think of the next task as a task in between personal branding and employee branding. And whether you have an established company or a startup, or you are working for some other company, or you have an idea that you want to go with in the future, or you just think of you as a personal brand, think of the tasks that I have for you as a company, as a startup, as a brand. First of all, think branding-wise. That is why the task I have for you has 6 elements. First of all, I would like to define 5 to 10 values that define your brand. Select additional traits, so personality, name unique dimensions that you have, think of it as your or your company identity, what are the aspirations, what is your brand voice, and what is your central theme. We will talk about in details about these aspirations and brand voice in a few minutes, but going through the 6 elements in next 10 to 15 minutes will help you to start the workshop stage easier. If you have any additional questions, I will answer them during the workshop stage of our presentation, our talk show. So far, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. I would like to thank you very much for being with us during the presentation. I hope that the presentation was clear enough for you to follow. But if you, however, have any questions, I would like to invite you to contact with me. You can call me anytime, no, almost anytime. You will find me on LinkedIn, but you can write me an email. And if you have any questions, any issues that you would like to follow, please contact me, and we can talk further on. Thank you very much.